Evening, everyone. What's going on? We're talking about delay tonight. Specifically, the best ways to use delay. Well, at least my favorite ways to use delay. You were just hearing my Multivox multi-echo. This is a real tape echo from the 70s. It's kind of like a Space Echo, a Roland 201. And I bought it a few weeks ago. Bought it after Josh Scott from JHS made a video about the history of tape echoes, and I saw this on his video and immediately fell in love with it. There was one on Reverb, and I bought it, and here it is as part of the studio. So, a couple of quick announcements. We're going to get to Q&A. We're going to get to the normal question and answer stuff. There are some things I want to talk about tonight, but the tone course is now available. Finally, after 6 months of work, it's done. It's available. Thank you to everyone that pre-ordered it this week. If you've already been watching it and you pre-ordered it, let us know in the chat what you think about it. And tonight I'm running a special $10 off. If you use the code DELAY10, that's one word, DELAY, number 10, you get $10 off the tone course. That is flat5.co. I will drop the link in the chat here. And if any of the mods are on, you guys could help me out by dropping this link every few minutes. That would be fantastic. I'm really, really excited to have this thing finally out and done. I worked really hard on it, and yeah, I've gotten some good feedback on it so far. So, in the spirit of the tone course, one of the things I talk about a lot in the course, in fact, I think it's 3 or 4 videos of the course, is on delay. And I'm not going to, rehash everything that's in the tone course, but I did think it would be a cool thing to talk about tonight. Some of my favorite ways to use delay. Delay is one of my favorite effects ever. I use it all the time, and there's more things you can do with it than just the typical sort of edge U2 kind of dotted 8 thing, although we will talk about that. That is a really great way to use delay. So we'll start with this. I've also got, if you look here on the floor, I've got a little quick pedal board I threw together with a few of my favorite delay units. So on the far right of the screen, we have the Nemesis from Source Audio, and I've got that set up for a nice digital delay sound. In the middle is the Strymon Volante, which is essentially Strymon's version of a tape echo in a box on your pedal board. And then we have the Jam Pedals Delay Llama, which is a fantastic analog delay. So we're going to play all that stuff. And we might actually, I hadn't thought about this, but what might be cool is to sync up or try and shoot out the Volante versus the multi-echo and see how the digital tape compares to the real tape here. So, all right. Where's everybody tuning in from? People are saying the audio's out of sync. Looks okay on my end. Let me see here. YouTube has changed their live streaming platform, and ever since they changed it, I've had all kinds of trouble with it. So we're just going to go with it from now. Hopefully it's something I can fix in the editing phase. But yeah, let me know where you guys are tuning in from. I like seeing that in the chat. If you're watching this later on a replay, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. So let's start with one of my favorite ways to use the delay. I'm going to kill the reverb on this thing. We're going to start with the multi-echo. So I'm going to go just delay. That's coming off the tape. That is a real tape delay. And one of my favorite things about tape delay is the repeat sound. You notice it starts, it's not necessarily a high fidelity sound, but it does start relatively bright, and then as the delay repeat starts to go on, it degrades over time. And you get that really nice, warm, compressed delay sound, which is awesome. Okay, but what we're going to do here is I'm going to set up a slapback sound. And I'm going to show you a couple different things you can do. Now, this will work with just about any delay pedal, no matter what you're using. And to get a good slapback, generally what you want is not anything too fast. So I'm going to speed up the delay time here. So that's a really fast slap. And it sounds cool, but you notice it's kind of stepping on itself. When you're doing this kind of thing, you need a little bit more room in between the delay, from what you're playing to the delay repeat. So I'm going to back off the time a little bit on this. And what's cool on this machine is this delay time is literally controlling the electric motors inside this unit and speeding up the rollers and slowing them down. So I'm going to go for something, you know, generally like on a digital delay, if you're using a pedal, I like having it somewhere in like between 110 milliseconds to 135, 140 milliseconds. I usually feel like that's pretty good for slap. Phil in the top chat, thanks, man. Pre-ordered the course, but still have no instructions and cannot download it. Well, all you have to do is go log into your Flat 5 account, and it's there in Flat 5. If anybody's bought the course already, you have to go to flat5.co, log into your account, and the course is there available for you. So that's a pretty good slap delay. I'm going to bring the repeats down because I really only want 1 or 2 repeats, and I'm going to bring the echo volume down a little bit too here. So slapback delays, you know, are really popular with the kind of country chicken picking thing. But what if you don't you're not a country player? Well, one of the greatest ways to use a slapback delay, like I've got set up here, that's a nice subtle tape slap, is you can kind of simulate a room reverb with it. So if you think about a room reverb, and I talk about this in the tone course too, but the key to dialing in great reverb sounds is it's all about the pre-delay control. And pre-delay basically is when you play a note, how much time, distance between the note you played, the transient of the note, and where the delay or the reverb actually comes in. And that's simulating a room. So if you think about it, if you're in a big hall, for example, a big concert hall, there's going to be quite a lot of pre-delay from the time you play a note to when it reverberates off the walls and comes back to your ears, right? And so a reverb pedal, for example, is replicating that by using pre-delay. You can do a similar thing with a delay. I'm going to bring the repeats up just a little bit, and you'll notice this is going to kind of give me a room sound when I'm playing chords. Now, it's real subtle, but if you don't have a reverb sound, a reverb pedal, but you have a delay pedal, you can essentially fake a room reverb with your delay. Now, if you turn the repeats up some more, you can make that... Kind of feels like I've got a reverb going on there. And now it's oscillating. Check that out. I love that. So, slapback delay, more than just country stuff. You can do a room reverb. Now, for this next example, I'm going to do on the Volante, and I'm going to use it as a double tracker. So, double tracking is something I talked about in the Deco video I made last week. But double tracking is something that I feel like not a lot of guitar players do. Dan, thanks for the top chat, man. It's as timely as your wanting to learn more about delay, the Volante specifically. Looking forward to this. Awesome. So double tracking is something that happens a lot in the studio, and it's a great way. It's not just done with guitar. It's done with vocals all the time. Basically, anytime where you're doubling a part, you're playing the same part, but you might be, in some cases, changing guitar sounds. You might be changing amp sounds to slightly change up the overall tone and feel of a part. But what it does in the context of a mix is it adds a ton of weight and a ton of width to your sound. Now, when you're recording, it's easy to do because you can sit at your DAW, you can play a part and then create a new track and then play the same part again and double it. And from there, you can either sum them to mono or you can hard pan them for a stereo image. But how do you do that live? You can do it with a delay. You can do it with a really fast delay. Okay, so I'm going to do it here on the Volante. Let's switch to the Pedalboard cam here. And I'm going to move away from my mic for a second. But you should be able to see what I'm doing down here. All right, so what I'm going to do on the Volante, and I haven't set this up at all. So let me turn off the tape delay here. I am still going through the tape echo, so it's hitting the preamp of the tape echo. And by the way, my signal flow tonight is Novo Ceres J going into the pedal board here on the floor, into the multi-echo, and then from the multi-echo into the Axe FX 3. So you're hearing a Morgan AC20 Deluxe sound in the Axe FX, and we've got the tape echo turned off. So you are hearing the preamp of the tape echo, but you're not hearing any of the tape delay. By the way, a cool thing to do with these tape echoes is use them as overdrive. Check this out. The Exotic EP Booster pedal, that little pedal, is basically emulating the preamp of an Echoplex EP Booster. So another cool, another reason to buy a tape echo. All right, so let's see what the Volante sounds like in its current setting. Kind of cool. That's actually a really cool sound. So I'm going to kill the spring reverb. And now you can see it's basically off. Even though the pedal's on, there's no delay or reverb happening. And so I'm going to switch it to a tape sound. And basically what I've done, the Volante works essentially exactly like this tape echo here. So inside this top cover, there are 4 tape heads. And you can tell there's 4 of these buttons here. So with these buttons on the front panel, let me switch back. So with these buttons on the front panel here, I'm basically telling the tape echo where I want my signal printed and fed back from. And then you have the repeats here, which will tell you essentially what type and how long of a repeat you have. Okay, so the Volante is set up the same way. If you look, sorry, wrong thing. If you look, that top row of buttons is your playback. Those are your heads. And the bottom row is the feedback, which is the repeats, like here on the tape echo. So to dial in a really fast slapback for a double tracking sound, I'm going to just put on the first tape head. So you can kind of hear what the feedback controls are doing. So what I want for a double track sound is a really fast slapback with the mix pretty high. What I'm trying to emulate here is 2 guitars trying to play the same part at the same time. And in the context of a live mix, this can be a way to sort of add some width and some weight to your signal. So I'll use an example. This is a part that I have for one of Noah Guthrie's songs, and it goes like this, just as completely dry. Okay, now I'm going to dial in a double tracker sound. See just what that sounds like real quick. So that's pretty good. It's a little too fast though. It sounds almost like I'm there's like a flanger or something going on. So I'm going to slow the speed down, slow the time down a little bit. So I've slowed the delay time down and I've added a little bit of repeat. So now I've got that. So that's kind of cool if you compare that to the dry sound. Now I could hone that in a little bit more, so see what this sounds like. So now that's kind of giving me a double-tracked sort of sound, and it's also giving me a little bit of a reverb. Peter, thanks for the top chat, man. Thanks for keeping up the show. Stay safe. Wondering if, assuming you like the Axe-Fx 3, how much you would miss all the high-end effects pedals, i.e. delay, modulation, and versatility. Well, I will say the effects that are built into the Axe-Fx 3 are insanely good, but as you can see in this sort of situation, I'm running everything into the front end of it and basically treating it like an amp, and it takes effects in the front end incredibly well. We'll get to the Q&A section pretty soon, guys, so if you have questions, there's two ways you can ask them. You can @ me in the chat, @Rhett Shull, or you can donate in the top chat by clicking the $sign down below and highlight a top chat, like we got one from Victor here. Love your channel. If you have to buy one interface today, which would you buy? Not a starter one? That's a good question. Depends on how many inputs and outputs you need, but I really like the Focusrite stuff, and I really like the Universal Audio stuff. So maybe like an Apollo 8 or one of the higher-end Focusrites. So, all right, so this double tracker thing. Pull those repeats down a little bit. So now what I've done is pulled the repeat time back a little bit, and I've maxed out the actual mix. So you can tell I've got a lot of delay going on here. And so now, whenever I play, it's starting to get a little muddy. And this is the key when you're dialing in a double tracker delay sound like this, is finding the balance between emulating two guitars playing at one time and not overpowering your initial line. So for example, like I don't want to cover up this melody. I want that to come through nice and clean. So right now you can tell that's a little too much. So I've sped the time up a little bit to get that repeat a little closer to my initial attack. And now I'm going to bring the level of the delay or the mix down a little bit. I'll knock over my tape I got here. So now what I have is and so now it's kind of a mix between like a double tracked sound and an amp in a room sound. You can kind of tell it's giving you that like a sort of acting like you can hear the amp in the hallway. And that's no reverb or anything. So there, I think I'm pretty happy with the double tracker sound. So I've just got it on the first head, one repeat. You can tell it's basically a fast slapback. And now it's just a matter of dialing in the time and the mix. So that's a double tracker effect. Now let's move on to one of my favorite things to do, and we're going to use the Nemesis for this. Dotted eighth delays. Now, dotted eighths are really, really popular. Thanks for that, Dan. Appreciate the donation, man. Dotted eighths are really popular, especially in like the worship world, and they're really useful. I use them a lot, but they can sound a little bit cliche. So what I want to talk about now is how do you make your dotted eighth delays sound good without sounding too cliche. And what can you do with the dotted eighth delay other than just the typical, bucka, bucka, bucka kind of U2 thing. So let's switch back. By the way, if anybody's just joining in, we're running a promotion, $10 off the tone course if you use the code DELAY10. And yeah, we got David SJ in the chat dropping the link for the tone course, so you can check that out down below. So let me switch back over to pedalboard cam here. Now we're going to be going through the Nemesis, which is the black pedal on the right, and I've got it set up for a digital delay. So if you compare what we just heard with both the tape echo and the volante, and you compare the digital delay, you can tell the character of the delay is completely different, right? The repeats are crystal clear, they're high fidelity, and that's sort of the nature of most digital delays out there. Now, by digital delay, I don't mean like, a Strymon or a Source Audio. Technically, yes, those are digital effects, but what I mean is the classic digital delay that became popular in the 80s. So like the TC Electronic 2290 delay, for example. Eventide had a bunch of them. They had I think the H3000 was one. Typically, digital delays like this are going to have really high fidelity, crystal clear repeats. And this is a good example of your typical digital delay sound. Really bright, really sparkly repeats. And so these are cool for so yeah. It was really kind of bright 80s sort of chord voicings. The thing I like about digital delays too is because there's not a lot of low end content in the repeat itself, they're really good for dense chords. They hold up really well to thick chords, and to prove that, I'm going to bring the mix up here pretty high. So now listen what happens when I'm playing these chord voicings here. It's still letting all those intervals and that sort of harmonic density that a lot of those chords have, it's still letting it come through without getting muddy. Where sometimes a digital delay, a tape delay, because the repeats can be darker and warmer overall, those thick chords can get kind of muddy sometimes. So that's one of the things I love to do with the digital delay. Norman Mosley in Top Chat, thanks, man. Started your 61st year of playing, 30,000 hours of practice. What's next? I don't know, man. You tell me what's next. That's way more hours than I've been playing. So that's a great digital delay sound. So I'm using these like Andy Summers Police chords here. So you get all that pick dynamic and that top end brilliance coming through in this digital delay. And that's good because of what I'm about to show you. So right above the tap switch on the Nemesis, I don't know how well you can see that, but above that blinking red light, there is, or next to that, there's a little switch that will allow me to switch from quarter note to dotted eighth. So, and so now what I have is, now you can tell the mix on that's really high, but that's a typical dotted eighth delay sound, right? Now, if you're not familiar with this sound, if you're relatively new to this stuff, the key with getting that kind of sort of... Oh, you're right. That did get set to tape. How did... Hold on. Let me switch this back. Okay, there we go. So now we're on digital. So... So that's your typical dotted eighth delay sound. In order to pull that off, a lot of it has to do with how I'm playing. Okay, so to get that really percussive sound, you've got to play percussively, and you got to play eighth notes: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And if you notice, I'm palm muting all of the notes. That's actually what I'm playing underneath the delay. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate that, man. So now what I'm going to do is switch back, put that delay on. Right, that's your sort of cliche dotted eighth delay sound. But one of my favorite things to do with this kind of sound is beef up rhythm parts, okay? So I play a lot of rhythm guitar, and most guitar players, especially if you're gigging, if you think about the course of a night, a gig, let's play, even just to say you're playing an hour gig, most of the time you're playing rhythm guitar, even if there's two guitar players in the band, even if you have a solo on every song, which is a lot, but even if you have a solo, most of the time you're playing under, at least from my perspective as a player, most of the time I'm playing as a rhythm player. I'm part of the rhythm section. I'm part of the drums and the bass. And I love to use effects like delay to beef up my rhythm playing. Oliver, thanks for that, man. So, one cool thing I like to do, and I talk about this in the tone course, there's a episode of the tone course called Utility Delay Sounds. And I cover this in that episode. Basically, one of my favorite things to do is double the bass line of a chord progression as I'm playing. So, let's say we're in the key of D, right? And I've got a 6-4-1-5 chord progression in the key of D. So that'd be B minor, my 6th chord, 4, G major, 1, D major, 5, A major. All right? So one great way, especially on a verse or something, to kind of fill it out as a player, as a guitar player, is to just sit and play the root note on the 4th, 5th, or 6th string along with the rhythm section. So I might do something like this. Palm muted. Really simple part. 6, 4, 1, 5, and D. Now all I'm going to do is kick on my dotted eighth delay. Let me get the tempo. I can't remember what tempo I had tapped in here. Now you can tell it sounds bigger. Now I'm going to dial this sound in a little bit more because that mix and repeat is really, really high. So realistically, it's still really high repeat. Now, how do you know the right amount of repeat to dial in? It's kind of on a part-by-part basis, okay? So I know right now I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So I'm changing chords every bar. What I want to do, and I'm playing continually through the bar, so I actually don't need that much in the way of repeat because I'm playing continually, and I don't want the repeats to muddy up the chord transition into the next bar too much. So what I'm actually going to do is pull that feedback down quite a bit. I mean, to where it's just a couple of repeats. And because I'm playing continually, you can't really tell that it's a short repeat. That's one thing I see a lot of players messing up with their delay sounds and their reverb sounds, is leaving the trails too long. If you're playing continually through a part, even if it's a, let's just say I made this a chord progression. So same chord progression, now I'm going to outline the actual chords. I'm going to go. I'm just playing the triads. So B minor, G major, D major, A major. If you're playing continually through a part like that, you need your repeats, your repeat amount, or the decay of a reverb needs to be relatively short. Even though the mix is high, listen to what happens if I crank that repeat up. So I've pulled the repeats up way a lot, and I haven't touched the mix knob. Now listen, I'm going to play the same part. Notice how it's spilling over into the next chord, and it's working because I'm playing pretty simple shapes. I'm playing triads, and then I'm only playing 3 notes, and I'm playing diatonically, so I'm playing in the key of D. And so none of the notes are really sticking out. Phil in the top chat, thanks man. Do you use reverb on the bass when you are recording or just delay? I actually don't use reverb or delay on bass. Occasionally, I will use chorus on a bass, but that's very, very rarely. So by extending those delay repeats, what's happening is it's starting to muddy up my sound, and it's starting to step on the next part of the chord progression. Okay, so with this part, I'm going to bring those repeats down, and then I'm going to dial in the amount of delay with the mix knob. Ideally, I'm just looking for 2 or 3 repeats here. So now you have a subtle effect, and it's just kind of sitting underneath what I'm playing. It's not overpowering it, but it's adding, in a similar way to that double tracking effect was, it's adding some weight. Let me turn it off. It's real subtle, but that's the point. I don't want it to really stick out. If I wanted it to be more apparent, or if I wanted more width to my sound, what I'm going to do is actually add some pitch modulation in. Now, most delay pedals nowadays will allow you to do this. They'll allow you to add some modulation. The Nemesis has some really great modulation sounds here on the digital setting. So the two knobs in the middle here, those are mod and rate. So on the left we have mod, and in the right we have rate. So the left knob is controlling the amount of modulation I'm adding. The right knob is controlling how fast it's modulating. So I'll show you what that sounds like. You can really hear that pitch modulating as like a chorus effect. Sounds really good, actually, like that. But for this part, I don't want that much modulation. But listen to what happens when I crank the rate. Now it's like vibrating back and forth. So I just want some subtle pitch modulation. And now what's going to happen is it's going to add some width to what I'm playing. Again, it's real subtle, but it's there, and in the context of a mix, that's going to help you sit. It's going to add some more width and weight to your guitar sound, and it's going to not be as dry. It's not going to be as sterile sounding. That's one of my favorite things to do. Now, let's just move on to this analog delay, this gem pedals, because this thing just sounds awesome. So if you're not familiar, analog delay, there is a Bucket Brigade chip in there, and basically the way that works is it's a chip that has a bunch of capacitors and circuitry that's delaying the audio signal. That's a completely analog delay circuit. There's no DSP or digital signal processing going on like the first two pedals, the Nemesis and the Volante. Those are using DSP chips to essentially emulate different types of delay sounds, whether they be tape echoes or whether they be analog delays. The Delay Llama is a true analog delay, meaning it just has a Bucket Brigade chip in it and circuitry around it, and it gives you a really unique repeat sound. So listen to this. That's such a cool sound. And it has some slight pitch modulation to it as well. It's subtle, but it is there. So you'll also notice on this pedal there's no tap tempo control. You have to dial in the time manually, which is some players you don't really need a tap tempo control. If you're just using a delay as like a one effect thing, you don't use a lot of delay all the time, you probably don't necessarily need a tap tempo control. I like having taps on most of my delays because I use delay a lot in what I'm doing, and I like to be able to tap in the tempo of each song. Actually, that's another pro tip here, especially if you're playing in churches or you're playing to a click track a lot. If you're playing to a click track, don't dial in the exact tempo of the song in your delay pedal. That drives me crazy, because what's happening is if you're playing to a click, like in church or something, or you're playing in a band that runs tracks, if you're dialing in your delay repeats to the exact tempo of the song, what's going to happen is if everyone's playing on time, which is not quite possible, but if everyone's playing on top of the click, your delay repeats are going to fall directly on top of everything else. The kick drum, the snare drum, the bass, everybody is playing on time. What's going to happen is your delay repeats are going to get lost. I always tap in the tempo because I'm not going to be perfectly on time, and my delay is not going to be perfectly in time. It's not going to be out of time enough to be a distraction or feel like it's out of time, but you're actually going to notice the delay more if it's not perfectly in time with the click track. But yeah, that's a little rant pro tip thing. The thing I love to do with analog delays is as a quick kind of triplet delay sound. So what I'm going to do here is dial in a quick sort of triplet, not quite slap back, but not a full-on quarter note or eighth note delay either. Kind of somewhere in the middle. Now this is really cool. What I'm going to do is bring in the spring reverb here on the multi-echo. So we've got the delay going into the reverb like you would on a pedal board or in an amp. And the reverb tank in this thing sounds insane. So good. So this isn't always applicable, but let's say you're playing a song and you've got these, you know, kind of high-voiced chords and you're doing like a... I know I use that chord progression a lot, but I think it illustrates this really well. God, how good does that reverb sound? So now I'm going to just see how this delay llama feels. This is a little fast. So now what I've got is this really nice textural sort of thing. And essentially what happens is with a delay sound like that, you end up playing to the delay. It's a featured effect. It's what I would call a character effect, and it's something that you can actually play to. It kind of becomes part of your instrument. So the level is a little bit high. So we go... You can kind of play around that delay repeat a little bit. And it also works well to kind of add some weight to your chords. It's acting kind of as an ambience tool, especially if I bring those repeats up some more. Ooh, it almost starts to oscillate, so you get this like... It's also, when you're feeding into a reverb like that, it's going to make your reverb trail longer because it's continuing to feed more signal into that reverb. So I'll bring the mix up some more to make it like really prevalent. Ah, sorry, wrong key. And if there's any kind of pitch modulation or any character in that circuit at all, it's really going to come through when you're playing these long chords on top of it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. And you could take the same kind of concept and turn it into a really great ambient sort of effect just by taking the repeats from a triplet to a quarter note. And I'm going to do that with the delay llama here, so check this out. So let's just say that's the tempo of my song, right? Such a great sounding delay. So we really crank it up. Now we have this. Yeah. So that's those are some effective ways to use delay like a pro. If you've got some questions, let's start getting some questions going in the chat. Remember, you can @ me at Rhett Shull, and it highlights it so I can read your question, or you can donate in the top chat. If you're just joining us, the tone course is available, and we're running a discount, a $10 discount if you use the code DELAY10 at checkout. I'm going to keep playing for a second while you guys get some questions submitted. Actually, I'm going to go back to the tape echo here, because it sounds awesome. So this is the tape echo and the reverb tank together. It just sounds so good. Push it right to the edge of oscillation there. Nicholas, do I ever stack delays? No, I don't ever stack delays. I know some players like to do that. To me, it's kind of redundant, especially because most of the time I'm running mono. Somebody else just asked. Right now, yes, I am running mono. I'm not running stereo. Even though the Axe-Fx is capable of some stereo delays, I'm basically just treating the Axe-Fx like an amp right now. Let's see here. Can you help dial in a dotted eighth setting on the Volante which doesn't have a dotted eighth setting like Nemesis does? Yes, I can, actually. That's a really good question. So, and you can do the same thing here with the multi-echo, but I'll show you on the Volante. What I'm going to do is turn the echo off on the multi-echo. So it's just the reverb. And what I'm going to do is tap in. Let's just say this is my tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And simply, I'm just going to click the third repeat button. So right there, you have one dotted eighth delay. And then now I just select how much feedback I want with the bottom row. Sorry, I had the repeats down. Hold on. So if you want a true dotted eighth, you highlight both of the third lights. And that's just a straight dotted eighth. And I can do the same thing here. Turn that off. I'll do the same thing on the tape echo. You see you've got the same kind of 4 button layout. And I've got that highlighted right here. So number 3 and number 3, and if I bring the echo volume up, I have a great sounding dotted delay on that. So that's how you do that. You can do sort of like the ping-pongy thing by what feedback controls you do. So if I have that setting, I have a... Oops, sorry. Really cool sound. Now I have this kind of galloping sort of thing. So, turn that reverb down. So I have... See if I remember the chords. No. And I'll do the same thing on the space echo, or the tape echo here. So turn the volante off, bring up the echo volume. Now, the tough thing is I don't have a tap tempo, so I have to use the delay time. It's pretty close. Let's see what that sounds like. We'll add the second head in there too. So much. It's a real tape echo. Rico USA, any tips on using Volante with stereo out or with Specular Tempest or other top reverbs? Looking forward to the Tone series. Thanks for the discount. Well, I don't often run stereo anything unless it's going to be a really prevalent stereo effect. So with a delay, for example, I would run like a ping pong delay. But I find the uses for that are very, very few and far between. I talk about this all the time, especially if you're playing live. You don't really need stereo. And like wet, dry, wet rigs are very cool, and they're great if you have a tech and a crew and a dedicated front of house guy who's on tour with you every night and knows your rig and knows your sound and knows the songs and knows the band. That's where it makes more sense to employ these big, complicated rigs. If you are a gigging musician who's like playing clubs, bars, or if you're on tour and you're playing different rooms every night with different front of house engineers, don't run stereo. Don't bring your wet, dry, wet rig. It's overkill. It's not going to sound like you think it's going to sound in front of house. It's just not needed. Bring the best sounding and easiest to set up and break down and most reliable rig you can. For years, for me, that's been a Pedalboard and a combo amp like my Tweed amp, or it's been a Kemper, or it's been a Helix, like a modeling rig. That's the best thing to do. If you are going to run stereo, though, again, it's all, I think it's the same kind of concept as if you're running mono. It's about balance, okay? So with all these effects that we're using, the real control comes in the balance and not overpowering what you're playing. like this sound. Like that's a lot of delay. In fact, I would probably bring that down a little bit, the echo volume. Right? That's probably closer to what it should be. That kind of thing. It's all about balance, man. Ooh, Moritz, what overdrive pedal would you recommend for $100 if it's your first overdrive? Man, I think the Electro Harmonix Soul Food is a screaming deal for a great sounding Klon style overdrive. There's plenty of Tube Screamer clones out there that you could get your hands on for around $100. If you could find a used like OCD for around $100, that would be really good. You could find an exotic BB preamp for around $100 used. Those are great. I need to actually buy. I want to buy another preamp. I had a BB pre for years and I loved it, and then I got rid of it because I wanted to buy something else, and so I had to sell that pedal to get something else, and I regret it. I wish I still had the BB preamp. Subi, what's up, man? Let's see. What's my take on analog delay pedals versus digital delay pedals versus laptop delays? Ooh, you mean like plugins? I'm assuming by laptop delays. Man, they're all great. It depends on what you're doing and depends on your uses. So, you know, the analog thing like the Jam Pedals Delay Llama sounds great. It's a really, really good sounding delay pedal. But it does one thing. It does that sound. And if you're looking for that Bucket Brigade sound and that's your thing, by all means, that's a great pedal to go for. If you are looking for a variety of sounds, then it makes more sense to get into the digital delay pedal, something from Strymon, something from Source Audio or GFI. I mean, there's so many great pedal builders out there. The thing with the laptop stuff, I don't really use that much in the way of plugins for recording or playing. I mean, recording guitar I do, but for playing guitar, like I've never used my laptop at a gig before. I just haven't. That to me is a little, that's kind of pushing the limits a little bit. See, who's the manufacturer on this multi-echo? This is Multivox. This one is from the late 70s. Josh Scott from JHS turned me on to these. Any suggestions for a good affordable delay? Yeah, man. Boss DD5, DD7. Fantastic sounding delays for not that much money. If you have a little bit more coin to spend and you want a more full-featured delay, something like this Source Audio Nemesis is fantastic. This is one of the best delays out there, I think. And it's more pedalboard friendly and a little more cost-effective than something from Strymon. To me, Strymon stuff sounds the best. I'm a big Strymon fan and have been for years. Chris in the top chat, looking at Revolta guitars, you're drawn to the Combinata Junior, but never had a single pickup guitar. Can you get much versatility with a single P90? You absolutely can. In fact, let me show you guys this. Pardon the pop. See if I can reach it here. Hold on. Oh no. Okay, so I'm supposed to give this back at some point, but with the current travel situation being what it is, this guitar is staying with me for the time being because I can't go to Nashville. So, unfortunately, you know, because I'm being safe and social distancing and whatnot, I have to just hold on to this guitar. And it's a great burden, but it's one I'm willing to bear. So, let's see here. Single pickup guitars are fantastic. Subi, you are the man. Turn that echo off. So this is a single pickup Novo. This is the Solus F1, I believe. This is the prototype one that Dennis built, and it's one of the best guitars I've ever played in my life. It was the NAMM guitar, so if you were at Winter NAMM and you stop by the Revolta booth, you probably got your hands on this one. It's fantastic. It's not mine, unfortunately. I have to give it back. But single pickup guitars can be extremely versatile because you have a volume control and a tone control. They're fantastic. And you can control how it sounds by where you're picking on the guitar. Okay, so right now it's kind of traditional Esquire sound, right? Like telly sound. Like seriously, how good does that sound? If I could play it properly. I mean, that's one of the best sounding guitars I've ever played. So there you have your typical kind of telly sound. What if I wanted to get a more round sort of neck pickup sound with no neck pickup? Well, on this style of guitar, what I'm going to do is roll that tone back to maybe 5 or 6, and I'm going to pick a little bit farther forward on the bridge. Now I have... I'm going to roll that tone off a little bit more. So it's not total neck pickup sound, but it is a little warmer. Versus so use your tone control and use your picking. Also, maybe switch to your fingers instead of a pick. So I've rolled the tone off to like 3 or 4. And that's kind of a softer sound. If you really want to get rounder, roll that tone all the way off. That's tone on 1. And that's pretty neck pickup. Like very, very neck pickup. So it's about how you play, and it's about using the tone controls. Dan in the top chat, thanks, man. Currently have the DD200, but I'm thinking of getting the Nemesis instead. Would the switch be worth it, or not that big of a difference? Mainly play worship and Americana/blues. You know, I haven't spent a ton of time with the DD200, but from what I understand, it's a pretty full-featured delay. What you would be getting with the Nemesis, maybe, you know, they've got some unique sounds. They've got the Helix delay. They've got the sweeper delay. Personally, I don't use those very much. I think they sound cool when you're playing on your own, but in the context of a mix or a Sunday morning worship set, I don't know that they're that usable. That being said, the Nemesis sounds fantastic. Is it worth switching from the DD200? Yeah, I think it probably would be. Because I think, you know, if you had a DD500 and we're thinking of switching to the Nemesis, I'd say no, just stick with the DD500. But since you're going from the 200, I'd say the Nemesis would be a solid upgrade. Don't forget, everyone, $10 off the tone course going on right now. If you use Delay 10, we'll take a few more questions here. Ooh, this is a good one. Any advice on how to combine volume swells with delay to get big ambient sounds? Yes. Let's do that right now. Let's go to Ambient Town real quick because I love it. We're going to use the let's use the Nemesis for this because I feel like this is close enough to what most people are going to have on their board. So let me switch to pedalboard cam here. And I don't have a volume pedal, so I'm going to be doing the old manual swell here with the knob on the guitar. I have a little bit of spring reverb, but here's what we're going to do. For the purposes of this example, I'm going to kill the spring reverb. So we have a completely dry signal. How good does that Axe-Effect sound, though? Like, it sounds really good. All right, so let's switch to pedalboard cam. We're going to be using the Nemesis here, and let's switch to the... actually, I'm going to leave it on the digital setting, and I'm going to show you how I would set this up, okay? So, for a swell reverb, for a swell, there's a couple of things I'm looking for. I want a fair amount of pre-delay. I don't want the effect to come on as soon as I'm swelling the chord in. I want the chord to come through first, and then I want the effect to fill in underneath it. I don't want it to step on whatever I'm doing immediately, okay? So with that in mind, too, I want a relatively long repeat time, and I want a relatively high mix, because in a swell setting, you're letting the effect, whether it's a reverb or a delay, you're letting the effect do the work. Victor, what's the signal chain for guitar and voice? Do you mute the mic? Interested in the live streaming setup. So right now, I'm running everything into my Zoom H6. I have the Axe-Effects is going through my mic preamps. It's going through the distressors behind me, and then I'm coming out and going into the Zoom. And then this microphone, this Lewitt audio mic, is going into the Zoom. And then you guys are hearing the Zoom as a basically as an audio interface. It's a great setup for streaming. All right. Thanks for that top chat, man. So, yeah, check out the Zoom H6. I've got it linked down below. It's a really, really great unit. So, let's mess around with this Nemesis and get a good swell setting here. Okay, so right now this sounds like a hot mess, but listen to what happens when I swell into a chord here. Ooh, we got some pitch modulation. Let me fix that. All right, so let's try this now. Now you guys can hear the chord before I'm playing because I'm playing next to the mic. So there's a couple things going on here I don't like. You can hear that it's a delay happening, and I want a smoother sort of swell sound. So typically what I would actually do for a swell is use a reverb, but you can do the same thing with a delay here. So check this out. So I've sped the time up so that the repeat will come in faster, and I'm going to try and swell in a little smoother on the volume knob here, so. I want to pull out that pitch modulation too, because I want it to be pretty stable. Also, my guitar's a little out of tune, but. And I've got the mix almost all the way up now, so here we... And that's an okay swell. I want a little bit more... Let me switch guitars here. God. Alright. The volume knob on the Saris is a little closer and it's easier to play here. So sound way better if I had a pedal, a volume pedal. Michael, thanks for the top chat, man. Thanks for everything you do. Your playing is in that sweet spot of simplicity. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. So that's an okay swell setting. The one thing you have to be careful of anytime you're doing a swell with a delay or a reverb is you want to make sure it doesn't have too much in the way of low-end content. So most sort of modern full-featured delays and reverbs will give you some EQ control. They'll let you roll off low-end. And I would recommend rolling off a fair amount of low-end because it gets muddy really quick, especially if you're playing lower chords. It can get really muddy really quick. But like I said, traditionally when I do swells, I use a reverb because I think it's a little bit more well suited to that. But yeah. All right, we'll take a couple more questions here. Take on the PRS SE Custom versus a Telecaster. Which one's more versatile guitar? You know, I might say a Telecaster, to be honest with you. Telecasters are some of the most versatile guitars that have ever been created. If you're really wanting something that is incredibly versatile, I would go with a Tele-style guitar that has either a P90 in the neck or like a mini humbucker or a wide range humbucker or just any kind of humbucker in the neck. I mean, Tele neck pickups are fantastic, but they're not quite as versatile as like a mini humbucker or a P90 in the neck. I think that's my favorite Tele pickup combination. Let's see here. What's the power requirements on these pedals, Charles? They're all 9 volt and somewhere between 100 milliamp and 500 milliamp. I'm using a Strymon power supply under here, the R300 power supply. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, cool. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know if you want to see more of these like tone tip live stream videos. I had fun doing this one tonight. Maybe we could do one on reverb next. We could do one on fuzz. But if you're interested in this kind of stuff, this basically is what the tone course is. It's an entire video course dedicated to this kind of instruction and content. And it's dedicated mostly to the fundamentals of tone. So especially if you're just starting out with electric guitar, or you've been playing electric for a while, but you don't really understand how these different effects work or how to make amps sound the way you want them to, I think the tone course, that's who I designed this content for. So, Simon, thanks for that top chat, man. Building a new board. Got a Volante on the way. Ventris or Big Sky for reverb? That's a really good question. Both are really, really strong contenders. I think the advantage of the Ventris is you get 2 reverb engines, so you can have 2 different reverbs going on at once, and it's a smaller footprint. I do think the algorithms in the Strymon sound a little better in terms of the spring sound specifically, but yeah, depends on that. Subi, thanks, man. Have you submitted to the Bukovac Corona Challenge? I have not, but I've been watching Tom Bukovac's channel like crazy. Everyone, if you don't know who Tom Bukovac is, he's one of the leading session guys in Nashville. He's an incredible guitar player, played on 1 million records, and he just started making YouTube videos. His channel is called 501 Chorus Echo, and it's just him sitting in front of his iPhone in his garage giving you some... It's crazy. I've watched almost all of them. So go check out Tom Bukavac's channel. It's 501 Chorus Echo is the name of his channel. It's fantastic. RJ, what am I drinking here? This is a little gin. Got a little gin going tonight. Thought I'd try something new. This one's called The Botanist. I haven't tried it yet, but it's really good. Actually, RJ should do a video on how to use delay. He's a bit of a delay master himself. Awesome. Well, thanks, everyone. Let me know if you want to see more of this kind of stuff in the future, and I will catch up with you guys next week on Sunday Night Live. See ya.